Hi guys, my name's Andy from mracing.co.uk and I'm here to give you a quick 5-minute overview of the MRage from BSR Racing. Okay, let's have a quick look-see inside and see what we get in our box of MRage goodies. Basically, we get a 1/10 scale mini touring car body shell. It's the Suzuki Swift. It's a Lexan shell, so it's painted on the inside. Comes clear, of course, so you can choose whichever colour scheme you want, and you can be as creative as you want to be. Basically, this shell and the MRage itself is based on the Tamiya M chassis racing sizes. So it's M03 or M05 Tamiya compliant, so it's 210mm wheelbase, and that's the Suzuki Swift body. Okay, inside the box as well we get a detailed instruction manual, which we'll take a look at in a little bit more detail a little later on. That's got a series of steps that you follow to build your car. It's a self-assembly kit with detailed diagrams and all the information that you need actually in the manual to build the car. Okay, we've got a large selection of carbon fibre and graphite parts. This particular piece is the lower chassis deck. There's an upper chassis, battery strap and suspension mounts are all in carbon fibre. The standard kit wheels are rubber, pre-mounted on plastic wheels. They have the standard 12mm hex drive fittings that you have on your full-size touring car, and there's various other bits and pieces. So you've got various screw bags, various plastic parts. Interesting to note that all the bags are actually labelled up, and those labels correspond with different assembly sections that are all detailed in the manual. What other stuff have we got in here? The differential units for the front and rear gearbox. The MRage is actually a 4-wheel drive shaft driven affair, and we can look at those a little bit later, but these are ball diffs that are included, and there is an option now for a geared differential as well. Right, coming on to that manual, for anyone that's built a self-assembly RC car themselves before, there should be no surprises within here. Basically, it is a series of exploded view diagrams in assembly stages. There are in the lighter sections of the manual are the actual assembly stages themselves, and generally on the right hand side of each page there is a darker section which details the details of the screws and various nuts and bolts and things that are required for each section. As you go through the manual, for example, we can see that as you get further into it, things that you will need to know. For example, let's have a look at the next section, which is here. Section 18 gives you the detailed views for the links and the suspension links and steering rods with the individual diameters, the individual dimensions that are mentioned there for each individual part, with scale drawings which make it a lot easier for the initial setup of the car. Okay, as we get towards the back of the manual, there's a large exploded view of the car itself, and if we're to turn back one page, we can go to the table which gives us all of the parts that are used in the car and their part numbers for ordering spares. And obviously on this side of the page there is a section for hop-up options. So for example, there are sway bars, there's aluminium suspension mounts, there's an aluminium steering bar, etc, etc. All things that you might want to consider at some point in the future, you know, for general upgrades. Okay, so once we've put our MRage together and we've followed all the detailed instructions, what do we end up with? Well, hopefully you'll end up with something that looks something like this. Okay, not all of this is obviously included in the package. you will need to provide motor and speed control of your choice, together with a steering servo, a receiver, and your propulsion battery. Interestingly enough, the chassis is actually set up to take either NiCad's nickel metal hydride or LiPo batteries. The LiPo batteries have a plastic fitting that fits to the chassis, which allows you to position it in one of 3 different positions, to go for either a full size 2-cell LiPo, or you can fit a shorter version, which are commonly available. Okay, as I said, the MRage itself is a full-time 4-wheel drive car. You can see that running down the centre of the car is the drive shaft. There are front and rear gearboxes with Planet and Crown gear drive, spur gear and motor mounted mid on the car. It's a 48 pitch tooth on the spur gear, and you can fit pretty much any pinion from 31, which comes in the kit, up to I think you can get a 41 or possibly even a 42 in there, and that will be, the gearing will be obviously dependent upon what type of motor that you use. We actually raced these in a race series here in the UK. Raced at club level. The particular club that I raced at has this as a controlled class, so it's a single car class. So every car that races in the series is actually an MRage, and the control motor is a Trackstar 21.5. But there are a number of clubs racing these in the UK and throughout Europe that we know of, and they all run their own different rule sets. But basically, if you're building the car to go racing, it's worth checking with your local club to find out what specs they actually run. But these things literally fly around the track with a 21.5, and compared to a standard touring car, we're probably only maybe 1 second to half a second a lap off the performance times of a full-size touring car. So they're a lot of fun. Okay, well, that's the standard car. Let's have a look at one that's been modified slightly. Okay, this is actually my raced car, which is just over a year old now, and it's holding up quite well. There are a number of things that have been changed. With any car, particularly in this price bracket, there are always going to be a number of things that you need to watch out for. One of the things that we have found that's not been a problem, but maybe slightly weaker point on them, is actually the ball joint caps on my car and a number of others at the Horsham Club that we race at. The end cap, the actual ball cups have been changed for the Tamiya ones, which are still 5mm, and you use the original balls. The good thing about these is that they're exactly the same dimension as the kit ones. They just tend to be a bit beefier and they don't pop off so easily. Okay. The other thing is, I mentioned earlier on the differential. Okay, this is the standard kit differential that comes in the car. The biggest issue with these is that the actual outdrive part, which is the bit that your drive shaft fits into, is actually made out of a resin based material. They do have this aluminium strengthening ring on the outside, which stops the joint opening up under load. The only issue with this is that in racing there tends to be sometimes elements of contact, either with other vehicles on the track or actually the barrier system that's employed by whichever circuit you race at. Generally, if this car takes a hard sideward knock, this aluminium strengthening ring has a tendency to ping off, and when it does, it rolls down the drive shaft, and the next time that you apply any sort of significant power, these joints tend to open up and they fail by half of it basically breaking off, thus ending your race, which is not necessarily the best place to be. So one of the things that we've done at MRacing is source a steel outdrive for this car, and you can see that here on my car. It's this piece here and this piece there. It involves a strip down of the rear and front gearboxes and a replacement of the outdrive, but it is a very worthwhile thing to do, and adds untold strength and longevity to the vehicle. Okay, the other things that have been fitted to this car which aren't standard in the box are the sway bars front and rear, which is basically an anti-roll bar system. The standard wishbones on the car have an extra ball socket on them for this to connect to, and it is a standard spare part that's available. Can be purchased from a number of online resellers, including ourselves, and basically there is a sway bar at the front and a sway bar at the rear, which allows you to correct that body roll issue that you can sometimes get, which eventually, if you're cornering that hard, may lead to grip roll and many other different issues. Okay, just basically generally affects the handling of the vehicle. Suits some people, not necessarily others. Okay. The other thing that you can see that's visible on this car is that the suspension mounts have all been changed for the alloy ones. There is also an alloy steering slider where the nylon bearings are actually changed for bull races, and it just makes the car a little bit more planted, a little bit more sorted, and makes the steering a little less vague. Okay, well, one of the things that people always tend to ask us is, how much does it cost to go racing with an MRage? Well, the answer is one of the things that has always been said about mini racing is that it is generally a lower cost way of getting into RC model car racing. If you're going to go down the Tamiya route with mini racing, which is by far the most popular, the issue there is that once you've bought the car, you need to spend possibly 2, maybe 3 times as much on option parts to make the car competitive. The one good thing about the MRage is that you can go racing somewhere where they, if you've got a club that races this class of racing, you can be competitive out of the box. It isn't necessary to spend lots of money on hop-up options to make your car competitive with everybody else. Most forms of mini racing run controlled motors, so that's the first thing to bear in mind. It's not a free-for-all for everybody. You should investigate what power units are being used, but from a point of competitiveness out of the box, it really is an unbelievable chassis. If you were going for the type of package that we're using here, again, everything that we've got is sourced from Hobby King, so it's a Trackstar motor, a Trackstar speed controller, Trackstar servo. If you was to budget, for a fairly decent entry level 2-channel radio, you could put this car on track with a new LiPo and a suitable charger for probably around the £200 mark. And it really is a fun way of getting into RC car racing. Anyway, that's it from me, so thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.